Ghost Host ASMR. I am your host, and I am a ghost. And I invite you to join me here in this small dark corner of the universe in which I reside. And I want you to know that for as long as you are here with me, I am here with you. And perhaps for much longer than that, for I believe in this darkness, we are all one. And in the darkness of this video this evening, I wanted to show you a new game that I've been playing. And it is called Made in Abyss: Binary Star Falling into Darkness. It's not exactly a new game. I think it's been out for a little over a year. But I just discovered that it had been released. It is a game that is based on a manga of the same name, at least the first part of the name, which is Made in Abyss. And it was also turned into a TV show, which I have watched the first season of, and maybe the second, but I can't recall right now. And it is a story which I was very impressed by, affected by, enchanted by. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've watched it or read it, and maybe you've played this game already. But if not, I would like to give you a bit of a description of the premise, the environment in which the game takes place, and then take you into the game and show you how to play, and perhaps go on a short adventure with you in the abyss to see what we might discover in its depths. But before I do that, I encourage you to take some deep breaths and make yourself as comfortable as you can. And as you take those breaths, allow your stomach to release and expand, to draw that breath deep into your abdomen. And on the exhalation, allow any tension that you might be holding anywhere in your body to release. rustic room. The walls are made of stone and cement. Everything else is wooden. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame is that this story takes place in. I don't think it even really takes place in our current timeline or universe even, although it does share many aspects of our reality. But anyway, this is my room, and I have a little storage box here in which I can keep many items. But now we move to the outside of the Belchero orphanage, as it is known, and you can travel to the classroom, the director's office, Shiggy's room. Shiggy is one of your friends here in this orphanage and in the game, as is Dorothea, Rico, and then Orth. Orth is the world in which this game and the story takes place. So I'm going to take us out here because if I go to the classroom, it's going to start a more campaign-oriented adventure, which I will leave to you to play if you ever have a chance to play this game. But this is a picture here of the abyss here in Orth, and as you can see, there is it's like a giant crater on an island, and surrounding this giant crater is a huge city, perhaps multiple cities for different peoples and countries that exist in this world, and that all have an interest in exploring the abyss. You can, from here, go to the Guild HQ, the supply shop, Relic Appraisal, Laffy's shop, the Caravan Fleet, and then finally the Abyss, where we will dive into soon enough. But just to kind of take you through the mechanics of this game, the majority of the gameplay is in the Abyss, where you descend its depths and fight off creatures and scavenge for different relics and materials that you can use to make items. But the relics are kind of the key component of the storyline and of the Abyss itself. Within the world of the Abyss, it's unknown how the Abyss was created and also what exists at its deepest depths. And this is where the story really starts to draw me in, because I think the Abyss takes on a more metaphoric identity as it is revealed what lurks in its depths. It starts to become something that is more paranormal, perhaps, or beyond just physical reality. And it does things to the people that enter the depths. But I'll go into that in a little more detail, I think, as we get down there. But we start in an orphanage, and the story follows the orphans that exist here. And the reason that this orphanage exists and the story wants to follow in her mother's footsteps, although she has very few memories of her actual mother. But she is beckoned to go into the abyss, against perhaps the advisement of others that she knows, those that raise her at the orphanage. The interesting thing about this game, one of the interesting things, is that it starts you off with that story. You can play through the story that is the storyline of the TV show, of the manga, as far as I know. And it also acts as a tutorial for the gameplay, at least some of it. But it only takes you so far, and then that story ends, at least as far as the game goes, and then you get to take up your own story as a cave raider that you create yourself. And so the ultimate goal here is to rise up in the ranks of cave raiders. You start out as what is known as a red whistle, and then you can move into the higher ranks that go to blue whistle, black whistle, or maybe it's blue whistle, purple whistle, then black whistle, and finally white whistle. So if I go here, you can see the tree of skills, and each of these little skills is accompanied by a whistle. I'm currently still just a red whistle, and in the story, that's as far as the protagonist gets before she decides to descend into the deepest layer of the abyss, perhaps never to return. So you go into the abyss, you find relics and other items, and then you can sell them here at the shops, or also buy items to help you as you go on your next cave raiding adventure. But I've already sold everything that I need to sell right now, and also have stocked up on everything that I might need for a successful cave raiding trip. So I think at this point we will jump into the abyss. And embark we will. The loading screen shows these little white flowers that I believe have some significance in the story, but I can't remember what it is, although they appear often, so I think they are important. You always enter from this area, which is, I guess, kind of the main entrance to the abyss, at least from the city or town in which the orphanage exists. And you have a wheel of items here, as often is the case in games like this. And the main weapon, which I've used so far, is a pickaxe, which obviously is also useful to collect other things or mine for other resources. Here's a very useful herb. It's called a hemostasis leaf. And with it, you can heal your wounds. You'll see up in the left-hand corner, there are 3 bars. The top one is your health. The second one is your hunger meter. And the last one is your stamina, which, similar to games like Zelda, is depleted as you run around or try to climb up different things. These are a couple of the easiest monsters in the game. They look like little weasel squirrels. I don't recall what they're actually called, but they're pretty easy to take care of and will give you some meat or bones with which you can make items or food to feed yourself. spaces, which when excavated can give you either relics which you can sell for money, or useful items like hard stones which you'll use to make tools and weapons and the like. But something which is also very important in this game and in the story of Made in the Abyss is what is called the depth sickness or something. I forget exactly what it's called, but as you try to ascend, as I'm doing right now, climbing back up from any depth, you can see that the edges start to grow purple, and then I'm getting attacked by some more squirrels. But if I were to continue to go up, it starts to really pinch harder. Now the purple has gone and become these kind of spindly veins creeping in from the perimeter of the screen, and it will harm you and cause you to throw up. And that, I guess, is sort of similar to what divers experience with the bends, where if you go diving underwater and you go very deep where there's a pressure differential from where you came from, if you try to go back up too quickly, it can be very painful, very harmful to your body because of the pressure difference. So you have to kind of go slowly to reacclimate yourself to the different levels. Now, I don't think that it is meant, or that it means that there's actually a pressure difference, because we're only going down, and it actually shows you in the middle of the screen at the top how far down you've gone, but we're only going down a few tens of meters at this point, so it couldn't really be a pressure difference, but it is still critical and harmful. Oh, there's a little butterfly here that can give you some bug meat, I think. Yes, bug meat is a nice way to make a food item which restores your stamina as well as your health. Your hunger meter. Now, something that happens very quickly, very often in this game, is you become overburdened. You really can't hold very much before you can't carry anymore. So that is something which has to be dealt with often, at least at this point in the game. I think that one of the level up options, the skill trees that you can grow with, is how much weight you can carry. So hopefully, as I become a more experienced cave raider and another whistle level, I'll be able to carry a lot more. So there are limits to each area, as even though we can look down into the depths of the abyss, you cannot actually just travel like an open world wherever you can see. If I were to go off the edge of this cliff right here, I would fall to my death. And it also doesn't give me the option to climb down. You can see this kind of striated, rocky surface indicates that you can climb up it, and up there too you can see those little shiny rock pieces are spots where you can mine for items, and when they have those red sparkles, it means that they're a bit rarer of an object or a relic. But it's not so important for me right now to get that, so I think instead we'll continue on to the next area. So instead of it being an open, completely open world, you travel to different waypoints first layer. This area will be called the waterfall gondola and is 50 meters down, so about another 10 meters down from where we are currently. Now, there are, as far as I remember, if I remember correctly, 7 layers to the abyss, and in the game, in the tutorial, the storyline portion of the game, you only descend to the second layer, and as far as I've played with the non-tutorial portion of the game, that's as far as I've gone as well, so it is still unclear to me at this point whether or not you can actually get down all the way to the 7th layer of the abyss. And wow, I'm really getting wrecked by these squirrels right here. The combat mechanics are not really the forefront of the game, I would say, so in that way it can feel a little clunky at times, but also I just tend to get distracted and not fight as well as I could, perhaps. But at this point, oh, here we go. They're called mantoyers, and another creature that we encountered recently was, well, not that, but we might see one of those. The vine binder. They're useful for getting the items you need to make ropes, which, as I mentioned, are very important items in the game. But there is the crafting here, which is what you want to do to help reduce the weight in the bag, because a lot of items weigh more as they're raw components than they do when you mix them into a food item or something that you can use. So now we are here at the waterfall gondola, and that is what you see up here. This big turning wheel, I guess, is the gondola. I mean, the gondola, I guess, is this thing that you can take to go down farther, kind of like a big elevator. But I am assuming it is propelled by a waterfall. Perhaps we can see that there, yes. The waterfall which turns the wheel, which allows the gondola to function. So we're gonna go ahead and take this gondola down, I think, just to get further into the first layer of the abyss. Unfortunately, you can't walk up these steps here. I would say that this is a very large game, but it can at times feel like, well, that there are places you want to go that you can't. But I suppose that is often true in video games and reality, so we won't dwell on it too much. But this is a big difference here. We're currently at 50 meters deep, and this gondola waypoint is going to take us down to the stone arc, which is 553 meters deep. So it shows us when we take a quick move with one of these, what it's going to do to our hunger and our health. And as it is a descent and not an ascent, we don't lose any health, but we do lose some hunger. But that's alright, I have a lot of food, so we're gonna go ahead and take this gondola down to the stone arc. So, with there being 7 layers of the abyss, I think that's our first indication that the abyss is meant to represent, or could have some thematic is not something which will be. Oh, here we go. Look at that bird flying overhead. The monsters do start to become quite threatening, although that kind of hammerhead hawk or whatever it's called is not as terrible as it seems. But to go back to where I was going, gotta watch out for this vine binder and then sneak in when its vine is retracted. Take it down a peg. The darkness of Made in Abyss is quite profound. The story in the show is really very emotional and tragic, I would say, in many different ways. Even though the protagonists are children, and from many still images of the show and the game, it can look sort of like a sandbox Pokemon kind of level of cuteness. It's very much a mature, I would say, mature rated show and story, because it deals with some very uncomfortable themes. Wow, okay, and there's actually a giant creature down here now, which I'm sure is not as difficult to take down as it looks, although, yikes, it's already coming for us. So I'm just gonna heal myself up before we go down there. So I'm gonna use one of those leaves I picked up when we first got in here to just kind of rub it on my arm, and then suddenly I am healed up. Also, my pickaxe is about to break. As you can see, it has its own little stamina bar, which indicates how many more hits you can use it for, but I think I have a few more in waiting, and it will automatically replenish once I get there. But this is called a takinata, and it's something I have attacked before, so I'm not too worried about it, but maybe I'll switch to my bow. Sadly, I only have one arrow left, so I'm gonna try and lock in here and not get hit too many times. Shoot, it's not letting me attack here with that. Alright. What's wrong here? I've got the bow. Oh, I don't have any arrows left. That's why. That's the problem. Alright, you know what? We'll just let that big bug stay safe in its cave. We'll ignore it and keep moving on. It is actually in what this area is called the Stone Ark. I don't know how it got there, and I think in the show even, or in the storyline, none of the cave raiders know exactly how that Stone Ark got here. The story indicates a very long history for the existence of this abyss and the cities and people that surround it. So, and there's another creature to contend with, this little kind of hummingbird bee. And these things can be pretty annoying because they just keep spawning, although they don't really have a very effective way of attacking you. But we'll continue on here. Perhaps go a little deeper into the abyss. Now heading to the jumping rock. Still the first layer, but another about 50 meters down. But again, back to what it is that the abyss may represent, or the themes that play out in the story. The abyss is divided into 7 layers, so far has been the first layer, and the first layer kind of takes on this, again, sort of like if you've played the newest Pokemon game, Scarlet and Violet, kind of like the giant crater in the middle of Paldea. It has this kind of paradise feel to it, where it's lush and cavernous, a lot of waterfalls and open sky, greenery. But as you get further into the abyss, when you get to the second layer, things start to change, or rather, you start to feel like you're in a very different kind of world. Maybe we're gonna start to get there even on this first layer. But it starts to get darker, and in this game, this looks like a little pathway. I don't even know how to crouch. Let's see if I can figure it out. There we go. What is in here? I don't think I've explored all of this in the first layer yet, but so this here is a little darker, I suppose. A little more cave-like of an area. And now that we're here, I guess we'll go ahead and travel down it. Actually, no, I'm changing my mind already. When I mentioned the importance of the ropes before, they're not as important in the descent. You can always climb down a rock face pretty easily and get to a new depth of the abyss. But the other half of these adventures is getting back up and beyond contending with the sickness that kind of just requires you to go slowly as you go back up. You also have to deal with the fact that your stamina does not allow you to just climb back up a rock face like this. With your bare hands, that is. You need to use a rope, which you have already tossed down in order to climb back up. I couldn't even find it for a second, but so here is the rope, and you can use the rope to climb back up. And we still have to take a pause here so that the sickness does not cause us to suddenly retch and maybe even fall from the rope. I don't know if that will happen or not. But when you rest while holding onto the rope, your stamina refills. This is not the case if you are bare knuckling it on the rock face. So perhaps at some point, if I've leveled up enough, or if I've brought enough food which would allow me to restore my stamina as I climb, I would be able to do this without a rope. But right now, it would be impossible, and I would certainly fall and die. And even while you resources for something to eat. But again, this has all just been the first layer. And I imagine it gets more difficult as you go down. So let's go down a little further. Here's another spot where we can set a rope, and that's what I wanted to get to so that we can get back up. Because, again, going down is only half of a cave raiding adventure, and the other half, the more difficult half, is going back up. Because there is no way to just kind of jump back to the surface. Although sometimes it does happen during the campaign, so whoa, there's some kind of big slug over there. I don't really know what that is, although I think I encountered it during the storyline, but only for sort of a cutscene and not in any way that I had to control. But so far as I know, most of the creatures kind of have a trigger that causes them to come at you, at least the larger ones. So I'm hoping that I'll be alright here. I'm actually going to use this other item I have. Not a fishing pole, but the monocular to scan it. I guess I need to get a little closer. There we go. Now we're scanning it. And oh, whoops. What happened here? Scanning, scanning. Oh, this thing is attacking me now. Yeah. Those squirrels can really screw up your plans if you don't account for them. But here we go. Analyzing again. It's kind of like a... I don't seem to be... Whoa, I almost fell off the ledge there. Okay, let's see what's going on. It keeps canceling my scan. Maybe... Oh, it's already been scanned. Or Crimson Split Jaw is what it is known as. Dang, I was so close. I don't know what's causing the meter to go back down. It's going up, and it's going up, and then... Okay, we got it. Crimson Split Jaw. Habitat Region Abyss Layer 1, and... Uh-oh, it's turning towards me now. Okay, so perhaps it has seen me. I don't know that I could take this down with just my pickaxe or my fishing pole, so an option could be to run by it and try and get over there. And I think that's the option I'm gonna take here and just hope it doesn't come for me. It looks like this is a narrow passage, too narrow of a passage for it to follow me through. In fact, I think that's how it happened in the story part of the game. But at least now you get a glimpse of some of the creatures that do exist down here that are a bit more terrifying than the little squirrels or the butterflies. And I'm sure they get even worse than that. Because again, we're only in the first layer here. And something else that happens as you go down into the depths of the abyss, as you go on beyond the first layer, and I guess beyond the second layer, because as explained in the story, the red whistles are not allowed to go past, maybe it's even the first layer. But there's something more than the monsters that starts to affect you, or even the depth sickness, and it's that you start to see things. You start to maybe lose your mind, and it's hard to know what is real at these depths, and it's hard to come back from them. And so I guess you might be wondering why anyone would go down here for as dangerous as it gets. And it goes back to these relics, which in the first layer are really nothing more than interesting stones and sort of alien artifacts that you sell. They look cool, I guess. They have different properties to them that may have some uses to the wider community, but as far as the game is concerned, don't really do anything. Oh, here we go. We got some of these horn heads or something. I forget what they're called, but I believe I've analyzed these, unless this is a different kind. Take a look here. Yes, it's called a horn crier. They're kind of like these elk that have some weird sort of sound attack. They use their big ear horns to. And now these squirrels, they just keep interrupting what could otherwise be a very peaceful sort of Pokemon Snap kind of trip down into the depths. But they're quite dangerous, these horn criers. I'm not sure that I would survive an interaction with one, or with a whole herd, as there appears to be right now. But there are levels to the relics that you find, similar to the different layers of the abyss. I'm just gonna hope they don't see me, and I guess they don't, so that's good. We're just gonna walk behind them here. Probably have to knock out a few more squirrels or little plants, but that is okay. Oh, here's a nice shiny red rock. Let's see what we find here. A vertical layer board. So yeah, that is something which I can show you here what some of the relics look like. We have the sun sphere, the horizontal layer board, the vertical layer board, the princess bosom, pulled teeth, mushroom ball. And these are all just kind of descriptive names because as far as the people know that collect these and analyze them, they don't know where they come from, so they give them these names as far as they can label them as something familiar, but truly these are all completely unfamiliar, or I guess just not human-made. But the level of the relic gets to the point where they become incredibly powerful in ways that, as they say in the show and in the game, can sway the power of nations. So it starts to take on this more global, political, power-oriented game of exploring the abyss in order to obtain new technology, perhaps, or new magical abilities which will give whichever community discovers them unknown powers over others, or just to better equip themselves to fight and survive in this often dangerous world, not just in the abyss, but above as well. And so I think this is where it starts to kind of come out that what the abyss is, in many ways, is an attempt, or is a representation of human ingenuity, or invention, imagination, creativity, in order for us to develop new technologies or discover new powers, new information, we have to be willing to go into the darkness and put our lives at risk often to discover new things. And one of those risks can be madness, can be losing touch with reality, or even being unable to return to the reality that we came from, both internally and externally. And it's hard to argue that it's not worth it, though, when what is brought back is something which can be very helpful to a great number of people, or can be very powerful. And I'm not advocating for the accumulation of power for power's sake, but I think it is an undeniable allure to seek greater power, or really just greater understanding, because, as is often said, knowledge is power. Wow, I guess I've run out of pickaxes to take down all these squirrels with. Let's see if I can build one before I get gnawed to death. Items, arrow, weapon, here we go. Can I make a pickaxe? Yes, I can make 2 of them, so I'm gonna make 2 of them. And hope that it's equipped. There we go. Got those squirrels. I've never been out to this stone bridge before, so I'm curious as to what is on the other side of it. It's kind of like we're going into the very center of the abyss, and it looks like I can set up a rope here even to go down further. There's something sparkling down here, a couple things. Jump down to see what it is. Somebody's bag. Well, this is new. Oh, there was a bow and arrow, a pickaxe, and some rations. Oh, that's pretty useful. I've never encountered another cave raider's bag before. Let's see what's in here. More rations, a gun called the Blazing Sun. Interesting. I've never used a gun in this game either, although I knew they existed because I could build bullets. Well, there's so much more to say, and obviously so much more to explore here in the abyss. And of course that there is trying to get back up, which, as I've never gotten down this far, or at least to this area before in this game, or at least in this portion of the game, I'm not sure that I actually will be able to make it back up very easily, but I think because we set up all those ropes, I should be fine as long as I avoid the horn criers and the split jaw worms, or whatever they are called. But unfortunately, my dear friend, I will have to leave you here at this moment, and I guess I will assure you that I will return safely to the surface. But I hope that you continue to travel into a state of calm and comfort and relaxation. And of course, I'm always very happy to have you here with me on my adventures. this game, we didn't even get to the scarier areas, I think. And I'm really hoping that we can travel those areas perhaps at another time. Because traveling into darkness, into the abyss, into a place where we can lose our minds, lose touch with reality, or endanger ourselves physically, can be very scary, and is always better